Hi, I'm Home Accents Today's digital and managing editor, Thomas Lester. This is part of Home Accents Today's Accent on Education video series, as well as part of the IMC virtual market. And today I'm joined by this esteemed panel of thought leaders to talk about trends. Joining me are from Fashion Snoops, we have Vice President and Creative Director of Home Interiors and Design, Jayana Mize. Hi, Jay.
Hi.
We
Hi.
have Cecil Adams, Vice President and Creative Director for Curry and Company.
Hello.
Hey, Cecil. And we have Surya President, Satya Tiwari. Satya, how are you?
Hi, guys.
And well, let's start with you then, Satya. And everybody's going to get a chance to weigh in here. You know, a lot you they might say trends, indistinguishably between fashion and fads. But how do you define trend versus some of these other terms?
Yeah, obviously, some of the panelists like Cecil, they know trends a lot more than I do. I didn't go to design school, or just the way we dress, you can tell the difference here. But one of the things that, I believe in trends as an entrepreneur, it's got to be a perfect balance of fashion and function. And it has to be livable. It has to be versatile. And I'm a firm believer there is not a point of view, there are multiple point of view. And how do we take that in our thinking when we think of trends? And more importantly today, right? I think we live in a space, sometimes we design a space as if we're going to be there for a few minutes, a few hours now. So I feel like the versatility and the functionality is equally important. So that's how I look at it. And then you always have, flavor of the day, typical patterns or typical colors, and everyone interprets differently. But for me, it's got to be a perfect balance of fashion and function.
All right, nice. Jay, what about you?
So usually how we, Fashion Soup is a trend forecasting agency. So usually how we forecast trends is we study consumer behavior patterns. And that really shifts the overall trend movements. And then, so consumer behaviors actually formulate trends. And that can be like big macro statements, like things like wellness or sustainability, and really looking at those pockets of what consumers are paying attention to. And then the fads lay within those trends. So they're like the little trinkets that are kind of pushing those trends forward. So whether it's a trim or a pattern or a color, those things that don't actually have a full 2 to 4, 5 year lifespan.
All right. Cecil, how about you? How do you distinguish?
Well, just to, kind of go along with what Jayana is saying, because she's someone I pay attention to for trends. I think trends, fashion and fads are all kind of intermingled. And I think that, it's all driven by culture. People make their choices based on what's going on around them, what they want, what their friends are doing, things come from their choices. So for us as a manufacturer and supplier, our customers really are driving the trend. We're putting things out there. If they're picking up on it, then we're going to do some more. And so that's how things really get spread and grow and really become trends. And I'll just share with you one of my favorite things to say to designers. You attend all these events and you hear all these designers who say, I don't follow trends. And what I like to say to them is that there's so many of you telling us that is a trend. And
exactly.
So you are a trend.
Exactly. It's like you do follow a trend because you have a lifestyle, and it's like it doesn't have to necessarily be like a trend spotting when you're at market or whatnot. It's really understanding how the consumer moves at the end of the day, what their thought process is, what their buying patterns are, and really people mix and match different types of macros as well. So like someone that's sustainable could also pay attention to something that's wellness. And it's really important, for brands to adhere to a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Jayana, let's stick with you for a minute or two. What are some of the big picture trends that you think are informing some of the fashion looks, this season?
Well, especially with everything that's kind of going on right now, the biggest trend that we're seeing is wellness. because so many people with everything going on really wants to know like how to take care of themselves, whether it's within your home and having like more self-care routines all the way to telehealth and really being able to have more of a digital application to things like hospitals or your doctor or things like that. Other ones that we're seeing are sustainability. That's a huge one. Definitely as people are progressing out of this whole movement right now, we're going to see a lot more people demanding transparency behind the manufacturing and wanting to know more of the quality of products that they're buying. And I think that's really important because I think, you know, people are really aware of why this happened, you know what I mean? And so they kind of are really focused on what are some of these practices that they can put into the place of their own home. And then another one that we're really seeing is escapism. That's a huge one. Fantasy escapism. It was something that was kind of on the forefront a while ago, but now so more than ever as people really want to escape from their everyday life. So you're following, you know, you're starting to see like more and more photography that feels kind of like dreamy, and you're seeing a lot more dreamy colors come to the forefront, but then also a lot more digital applications like VR and things like that that are coming as well. I mean, I think they were saying that Animal Crossing since COVID happened was like one of the #1 things that people are really paying attention to. So as people, you know, progress in this consumerism, they're really wanting to have ways to adapt in through escapism as well.
Yeah, and going back to Animal Crossing, I know there's been a handful of companies that have imported some of their styles into the game, you know, for people to buy. So, yeah. All right. Well, Cecil, how about you? You know, what are some of the big overarching things that you know Curry was paying attention to this spring?
Well, I think definitely this whole kind of natural materials story and the whole, you know, lighter colors, a lot of white. I think white is going to continue to be really important because it feels clean, and I think that's very important.
Safety, yeah.
And connected to sustainability. And there's some, I think decorative things are still important, but if you've got a lot less of them in your space, then that becomes more of a statement piece. And so what we're finding with some categories like table lamps and things like that is they want them to have something, you know, a little more oomph to them maybe, or they want them to really be just clean and functional. And so you've got that minimalism, maximalism, kind of a mashup thing going on. Blue is still really important, and we're doing well with blue. And I think people have invested in blue in a way with kitchens, you know, with things that are going to be in their house for a long time, like people who have gray. You know, we can all say gray's over, but people have lots of things invested in gray, and I think things that complement that. So when you see consumers building in stuff, then you know it's going to be there for a while. And then we're working on kind of what I call a mesa trend, which is kind of the African rugs and, you know, anything that's kind of desert inspired in terms of a color palette and that kind of thing, and black and white. I mean, those are kind of the big ones, the macros, if you will, for Curry.
Well, Satya, I know, you know, every High Point market right there, as you walk into the Surya showroom, you've got the 4 big key identifiable trends, you know, right there front and center. So, you know, what was the company paying attention to, you know, in getting ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we miss markets. We do a lot of things there. A lot of things that Cecil talked about, right? You know, the natural, and everyone defines natural differently. I mean, like the biggest joke in the rug is, you know, I want a natural fiber, and they don't want wool, and wool is the most natural fiber. I think everyone has a natural. So natural is a big trend, I think, for several decades, several years in the last decade. I mean, the new consumer wants to know what the product they're going to be living in. I mean, and sometimes I feel like they don't do enough research. I mean, the green or greener, what is green? I mean, it's, so I feel like the natural is continuing. And I think the last few months, obviously, it's given a lot of consumer to really reflect on what are we consuming and what is important for us and society long term. So natural is a big trend. Organic, I mean, another term that's very trite, but within the home furnishing, you know, the people are not looking for a perfect a weave. They're looking for something that's more organic, a bit of a craft. So that's something big, that let it be a table lamp that we are launching, or even an art or a rug. The craft element is very important, which kind of leads to the natural. The colors, I think Cecil nailed it. I think, you know, I always joke in our role, you know, gray, blue, vintage, and abstract, right? So, you know, we can sum the entire trend. So grays and blues, but I think, you know, the different shades of blues are coming in, but people have invested so much with the blues. I don't think the gray and blues are going to go away, but now we're bringing element of green, some newer color, and you know, the less is more prevalent today. So I feel like every square foot in our homes have to do more now than ever before. So I feel like this idea of how do I, you know, less is more, but it has to be much more livable. So those are some high level, you know, trends that we are seeing.
All right. Well, you know, at the first of the year, you know, when this virus first started coming on the scene in China, Cecil, we'll start with you here. You know, about what point did the Curry team, you know, really start saying, hold on a second, this could really significantly affect things, you know, for us and for the industry, and you know, what was the process in, you know, making sure, you know, everything was going to be as okay as it could be?
Well, we have a trading office in Hong Kong, and we also have a small team in mainland China. So we knew as that unfolded, you know, things were going on there, and our first and number one concern was them, their families, you know, where were they located, that kind of thing. And we began to send them masks. We started shipping them things back in January, early February, that we thought they would need, that they had asked us, you know, can you help us out? So we were sending supplies that way. And then, you know, obviously, as you start asking yourself all these questions, and with all the January shows and everyone coming from everywhere to all these places, like, when did this thing begin? And you know, and so we were aware, and we were paying attention to our folks overseas. We didn't have any word from India about anything that early on, but of course we were concerned about our folks over there too. And then as it, you know, as it spread, then, you know, it suddenly it was here, and we had to, you know, we had to shut down and do the things that we did. As far as the market was concerned, we have, you know, we're ready way in advance in terms of having all our stuff. So as far as a product launch and photography, we were okay with all that. But we shut our office down on the 13th and our warehouse on March 13th. And so since then, you know, it's been limited operations and that kind of thing. And I think I know you've got a later question about supply chain, but I think we're just starting to see, you know, the effects of all that, and the timing of everything at different times in different places all over the globe is really going to affect everything, you know, what you can get. I'm more concerned about next season than this season in terms of the product introduction and having what we need and deciding what that's even really going to look like than this particular one that we're in right now.
All right, well, Satya, how about you? You know, what was, you know, when did Surya start paying attention, and, you know, what was the response, you know, in everything?
Yeah, I mean, along similar to Cecil, I think one, you know, initially, and this is my, you know, from my point of view, you know, in January, we felt like this is hitting China. We didn't feel like it will be hitting US as hard, or India. So we were kind of more like, hey, you know, our Chinese vendors, are you guys okay? What can we do to help? So we took it very, a problem that's not here, it's over there. I mean, as Cecil, I think now I know why we don't have all the PPE he sent all to China. I mean, it's, so I feel like it was more like, hey, you guys, we care about you. Good luck. We didn't really think, you know, our daily lives would be changed so fast. So, you know, and another thing, because what we read on the news, it was not, I mean, looking backwards, everyone can say and see differently. But back in the days, and we went to, in January, I mean, Atlanta, I mean, I must have hugged gazillion people. Today, I don't know when's the next time I'm going to hug. So it was not as hit as home till March 13th. That's about the same time we totally went, virtual in our offices, along a similar journey. India got impacted even later than, and a lot of you, I mean, in mid or late February, I don't know the exact date, when Corona was kind of getting up, Trump was actually in India. And India, the Indian Prime Minister Modi was getting ready for him. So, and this was planned much ahead. So I think in all this, the biggest event in India and US was happening during all this. So we didn't realize it was that big of a global issue. It's more of a China issue. And then, from mid-March, I think all of us, our world, changed tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, Jay, what sort of things were you hearing, from, the people that you're in touch with?
Well, I mean, the minute this happened, we're already a digital platform. So, and the majority of our team is global. So we already are quite used to working online, but we really had to shift and pivot to create what really looked like actionable reporting now, as opposed to doing like future 2-year, 1-year forecast, to being more like 3 to 6 month, even 1 month forecast of like actionable ways that your brand and business and retailers could, still implement. So we did a lot of those types of things. I mean, I was at Maison Objet in January, and all of our teams from our fashion world on Fashion Stimps was actually in Paris at the same time, and it was quite big then. I remember going back through Charles de Gaulle at the same time. Apparently a woman from China had been there, and I remember being like, oh my God, I hope I didn't get anything, and like washing everything down. But we started kind of like being a little bit weary and scared of this in February, but very optimistic, but really shifted, March 1st, as we started seeing it really kind of like hit, but we weren't at home until the week of, I think, the 13th of March.
Right. And let's stay with you then for another minute or two. How does a worldwide phenomenon like this, how does that affect trend forecasting?
So obviously you have to think like, how do you help your customers and clients now? And also, how do you help them do their projections for 12 to 18 to 24 to 5 years out, 24 months to 5 years out? So we've had a lot. I mean, it's literally been every single day calls with different clients, retailers to manufacturers, all spanning from, Target to Timberland, really helping them kind of understand like what the landscape will be like going forward, but what are some actionable things that we're seeing other brands really do now that are hitting home with consumers. Really looking at products that are safety first, really geared towards protection, we've done a lot of reporting, like how home as a workplace has really shifted, how people are dealing with their kids at home, really looking at how brands and manufacturers can kind of realign their marketing practices to push some of those products forward really, really quickly, which is, I think, really important.
All right. Well, Satya, how does this affect, how the Surya team's going to, evaluate trends and take the pulse of what's going on in the world?
Yeah, so I think, similar to, some of the earlier comments, I mean, we're looking at, first of all, a high level. Virtually, we have plenty of data that we can make some good decision on where the world's going to go. I don't think it's going to be drastically different. And I mean, in terms of what the material and the weave and the colors, I don't think it's going to be drastically move. With that said, I feel like now all of us last 2.5 some months or 2 months in a way, we had a lot of time to reflect on, what is our purpose, right? I mean, if we had this call 6 months ago, all of us were talking about timeline, market, travel, visa renewals. So I feel like last 3 months have kind of really given us, a lot of time to really reflect on what is our real purpose. So I feel like there'll be some, and I don't know the answer, I think there'll be some a shift to what we develop. So I feel like I'm much a different person in the last 3 months because I really had some of those downtime, reflection time to do. So I feel like there'll be some big shifts. I don't know what those are. And it's going to be collaborative, right? It's not like one company or one person, but I do think the last 3 months has really given us a lot of time to really reflect on how we how do we write the next 5 years, 10 years? And right before the call started, what is the market in future? How do we interchange ideas? I mean, again, we are a herd mentality. 12 months all lined up. We go here, we look at this, we do this. So I feel like a lot of that's going to change going forward. And I think that's and in this time, people, companies that can adapt and be flexible and really take the collaborative approach. I don't think, again, earlier point, it's not our point of view, it's a multiple point of view. But I'm kind of thinking, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that what we will create as industry leaders, as brands, as designers, as I think it will be pretty powerful. I think because we put some solid time into what really matters, and we cut a lot of things that doesn't matter. So I'm really excited about the outcome of the next few months and years.
Cecil, how about Curry? How does this affect how your trend forecasters evaluate?
Well, I think, there's no way that it can't have a broad effect and things that we don't even know. But like Satya, I think having the pause button hit for you, even if it's a terrible way for it to have happened, I think was something that we really needed, honestly. And early on, I read an article, I don't remember who to credit for it, but they mentioned that we were getting kicked 5 years into the future, and I think that is absolutely what's happening. I think for us, we're going to, a rug is made the way a rug is made. Metalwork is metalwork, and so the things that we do are going to be done in the same way. I think that and I don't think that you're going to have some giant change where all of a sudden everyone wants a completely different color or a completely different something. I think what their priorities are going to change, and so I think we have to pay attention to, as things reopen and you begin to interact again and and have things going on with customers, what choices are they making? Because that's where the real change is their priorities, and the things that they may have wanted 3 months ago for their home or their whatever is going to be really different. And so I think we just have to kind of keep on being aware and paying attention to that. Because to me, that'll be the big change, not whether things are going to be white and natural or blue or gray or whatever. I think what's really going to change is, what do I want for my home, and how am I using it, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, speaking to that a little bit, a lot of the retailers and a lot of the designers that I've been talking to, since everybody has started sheltering in place, that when things open back up, there stands to be a good bit of pent-up demand. So Satya, we'll start with you on this one. What sort of opportunity do you think there is for the home decor marketplace, when business gets to the point that it's a little more stable?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, before I even answer that, I think, while we have been shelter in place, I mean, certain part of our business has been functioning, right? I mean, e-commerce, has been doing really well. So we think of business in 3 buckets. We have designers who are the lifeline of our business. I mean, with our design communities where we learn to be better, right? I mean, they are passionate and they live in the product. The retailers, obviously, that's a little different approach than e-commerce. So I feel like in the wild, everything was sheltered down, and we learned a lot from we kind of understand how things are going to evolve through what we are transacting with e-commerce, and we have had some good learning. So the pent-up demand is there, but a lot of design customers also have done a really good job of obviously retail was hit the most last few months. Designers were kind of giving an example of a good restaurant takeout. They're still in business, but they're not the whole dine in. We have had some designers who are very very creative. You know, we're using some of the digital technologies out there, trying to do contactless sample drop off and doing a Zoom presentation. So I feel like there's a demand, but you know, that we have to evolve to, right? It's no longer the old way that we can say, hey, we'll meet you at market. I mean, one of the things I've been telling along that historically, we as salespeople and buyers as well, we kind of use market as a crutch, any meaningful conversation, or we'll do it when we meet at market. And now I feel like we have to pivot in a way that how do we communicate with the customer in a meaningful way tomorrow or a day after, a week after, a month after, because the market's not going to be the same way as it has done. So I feel like, you know, that there will be pent-up demand, because one thing we all have appreciated this down time is home. The value of home. And, you know, yeah, you could have a nice $100,000 car, $200,000 car, but it's the home that matters, right? So I feel like a lot of people, I mean, me, I'm not a designer by nature, but now just living in my home last, you know, 2 months, there are a lot of areas I know I can do a better job. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring great products there. So there'll be a lot of great pent-up demand because we appreciate our home a lot more. And our homes are no longer home. It's a school. It's a yoga room. It's a conference room. The definition of home has changed. But the key question from us, we are answering is how do we meet our clients in the method, in a format that's more relevant today? Technology, and sometimes technology doesn't mean everything has to be, you know, PowerPoint. And you know, how do you create a meaningful presentation that I do in a virtual call like this? How do I touch and feel, you know, with a product without in person? So I think we know there's a lot of stuff we've been doing, digital catalogs, meaningful videos that our sales guys are creating individual, not, I mean, obviously e-blast and all that are very high, you know, high arching, but a lot of our salespeople are, hey, understanding their customers, creating digital message that they can transact and then follow up with a call. So I feel like the demand is there, but we can't make the mistake of expecting the old method to work now as much as, you know, so we have to evolve, right? We have to learn from all these things.
All right. Well, Cecil, you know, talking to, you know, Curry's retail customers, design customers, your own design team, do you feel like there's going to be some pent-up demand, you know, once business opens back up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, once we move from this kind of hunkered down position that folks are in, and to all of, you know, the things we're talking about, people being at home, paying attention to home, for sure there's pent-up demand. I think that there's some hope for some of the bricks and mortars in that pent-up demand, because I think that while e-commerce has certainly gone up, I think it's like 30% now, and I think it's going to continue to grow. I think that we're all spending a lot more time in front of a screen. And so we might want to get out and go into a place and have an experience with something in person. So I do think that there's some, you know, there's some of that pent-up demand will turn into kind of a 3D experience, if you will, where you can maybe touch and feel something, or at least see it in person. And I think to Satya's point, you know, we talk often about meeting the customer where they are. And I think now you know, now that's more important than ever, because you know, certainly we at Curry, the same thing. Oh, we'll see at market. We'll have a meeting at market. We'll do this at market, and we'll show you everything at market. Well, I think that's going to be different now. And so there's a lot of, you know, there are many challenges to be met and a lot of things to think about reinventing ourselves in terms of how people want to encounter the product. And so you're going to have to be in all the channels and create opportunities in lots of different places to do that.
All right. Well, Joanna, you know, what do you think? Do you think, you know, when consumers get to the point that they're comfortable going back out or even shopping online, I mean, you know, that's, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. You know, that's bound to be a more important part of the home ecosystem moving forward. But do you feel like there's going to be some demand for consumers to come out? You know, I'm sick of this sofa, this wall decor.
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah.
We've already seen a huge uptick towards that, especially with like the bigger ticket items and things that consumers weren't comfortable with purchasing online previous to this happening, like sofas was a huge one that people weren't very comfortable with buying online because you want to sit in it, you want to feel it, you want to touch it, you want to feel how comfortable it is. We're seeing a lot of those big items actually be purchased online currently, which is really quite interesting. A lot of hard goods, a lot of furniture pieces, bigger items. One of the biggest things that really happened when everybody kind of was released from quarantine in China was they were revenge shopping. And they all flocked straight to the stores, but that only really lasted for about a weekend before people kind of really, you know, mellowed out again. And I think that people are going to be smarter about their purchasing decisions. And I think that it's really up to us to guide them to do that as well. I think that people are going to want like fewer, better things going forward.
Well, getting back to, you know, just the whole digital nature of life as it's become, you know, here we are on a Zoomcast. You know, people are shopping online. People are doing virtually everything they have to do online. Cecil, we'll start with you here. Do you think e-commerce is going to, you know, build on, you know, how it's grown over this? Is it going to continue to be a much more important piece of the puzzle now after, you know, we get through this?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way that it couldn't be. And I think that for, you know, B2B kind of businesses like ours, you've got to up your game, you know, I mean, because now everyone is paying attention. You know, those who might not have had such a great website or something that wasn't very navigatable, easy to navigate, has to be better. So we're paying, you know, we've been building that kind of infrastructure for some time, and we have relationships with suppliers who are people who only sell online, as well as, you know, all the mix of everything else. And I think, you know, again, we've got to be where the customer is. And if that's a designer who, you know, now is managing children and everything else, but has a project and is in bed at midnight scrolling our website to see what's in stock, we better make sure that what's in stock is really in stock, and, you know, that they can get it, and that kind of thing. So, and I think more and more and more, even, you know, no matter what generation you are, you're doing some research online before you make a purchase. So however you make the purchase, whether it's on the screen or in the 3D space, you're walking into that space, and customers are savvy. We should never underestimate these people who are coming in. They're smart. They know what's going on. They're reading everything, seeing everything. You know, they kind of know what they want when they walk in the door. So you need to be ready for that, and however that's going to take place. And so we're investing in the things that we need to invest in to help not only the customers, but our rep organization and everyone else use all these tools. And I think it's just going to continue to grow. I don't know how big it'll be, what percentage it'll be, but I think there's no place to go but up with the whole online piece of it.
Right. Well, Satya, you kind of alluded to this earlier, you know, on the B2C, you know, B2B level, yes, the digital tools are going to be much more important, you know, as people might not be quite comfortable venturing out, going to markets quite yet. Well, do you see the digital tools being just as important from the store to the end shopper?
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, I think you know, last few months have definitely accelerated e-commerce, but not e-commerce just like internet side, but our understanding of virtual. Like I feel like, I mean, think about, you know, last 6 weeks, nothing has like, you know, pleased me more than seeing our design customers with the, you know, using Instagram in a really creative way to create demand or communicate or keep in touch with their customers. So I feel like, you know, before COVID, I feel like e-commerce was, hey, we have to compete with e-commerce. Our service is you can't get it done the way, you know, the way we do it. I feel like now I've seen an embracement of e-commerce, which is a lot more powerful, right? Mm-hmm. And I think now every designer we have, every retailer that's design driven we have, they think they're e-commerce. So I feel like, you know, when you get out of your comfort zone and you are forced to use something. So I feel like the whole understanding of e-commerce has changed. And I feel like now it's more of a tool. It's more of an ammunition that all of our customers have versus, hey, how do I compete with e-commerce? And that to me is really amazing. And now to Cecil's point, now we as an industry have to evolve. I mean, we have to give them the ammunition to take it to the next level. So we can't, again, the old style of communicating where we had in person. I mean, a lot can be, we can cheat a lot when we have to do in person. Think about like, if you have to write a speech versus just go and talk about it. So now we have to mentally be ready. How do we give the content that can be taken to the next level? And I feel like we at Surya, we've been doing this for many, many years. We're on the front end of this. I think we're ahead of the market. I feel like now we're at the right spot, and how do we accelerate going forward?
All right. Well, Jayanna, for years, in e-commerce, there have been certain products that show better on websites, that, people say, this is a great e-commerce type product. Moving forward, do you see the way that we've had to live these past few months? Do you see that, affecting the way, things are viewed, the way trends are?
Well, you have to tell us. You definitely have to tell a story. You have to have the whole storytelling aspect. And I think, there's kind of like, you have your two sides, right? You have your consumer facing e-commerce site where you really want to tell like a story towards their lifestyle. But then when you're on the market, the B2B side, it's really about the manufacturer telling the story and the transparency about how they're manufacturing everything, like why it's sustainable, all those things, and giving those selling tools to their designers and to their retailers to be able to then tell the story to the end consumer. So we're seeing a lot of that really kind of shift and uptake, even more so than it had before with e-commerce, because like both Satya and Cecil were saying, people can do all of their research. People can go online and do all of their research, and they can also find that product at 5 or 6 different retailers or stockists. So like they need a reason to choose you. And so being able to tell that story and giving them that ammunition of how to tell that story is really, really key now.
All right. Well, Jay, let's stick with you for a second. When things like this happen, people might be a little more shy about traveling, about getting on a plane, about maybe going on a vacation, taking a cruise, seeing, new things, and maybe spending some of that discretionary money on their home. So, what do you think some of the areas that might benefit from everything?
I think that really looking at, people are definitely exactly what Satya was saying earlier. They're looking at their home completely differently. You're stuck there. So, everybody is really like, oh man, now that I can't go anywhere, I want to redo all of this stuff that, I just never had a chance to do. And we're really looking at the different types of categories of how people are wanting to redo their home. One being protection. People are really focused on safety. So things towards protection are really like touchless appliances, things that are really more geared towards cleanliness and ways that, they don't really have to worry about the safety aspects in a sense of germs when they come into their home, which is really quite interesting. The other one is comfort. We're seeing that so many people with the whole wellness movement and everything kind of going on, they want to feel comforted in their home right now. So we're seeing like a huge uptick towards things that are very texturally driven, things that are very cozy. And we've kind of been in that space for a while, but we're seeing it really resurge right now specifically. And then the other one is mood boosting. Because you're stuck in your home all the time, you really want things that are colorful and very much your personality and things that feel very much you. Similar to, Cecil's background right now, his beautiful gallery wall. The things that are very, kind of like when you walk in that room, you're like, oh, this feels great. Or this feels like something that's going to, put a smile on your face, because you're basically just looking at the same walls all the time. So you really want things to feel like a part of you and a part of your personality that shines throughout your home. But yeah, there's a huge uptick towards, you know, people redoing their home, especially towards like the workspace. Huge uptick towards like people personalizing their workspace, buying more desks, printers, chairs, anything that kind of makes that feel more cozy, as well as focus towards like kids and kids schooling as well. Those are specific to like, you know, the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Well, Cecil, you know, what areas do you think stand to benefit the most, you know, from, you know, consumers maybe being a little, you know, less shy about spending on experience and more spending on home?
Well, I think, you know, I completely agree with everything that Jayanna's saying. And I think that, you know, it is all personal. You know, you're like, for me, and just, you know, not to make this all about me, but in my own space, I kind of, I downsized and moved into a smaller place. So now working from home, I don't have an extra room to turn into an office. And so I'm thinking about how I'm using, you know, how I'm using my space. And so I think that translates out to what everyone else is doing. And just to add to that, I also think that outdoor spaces, where you're now, okay, suddenly the family dinner or, you know, your whatever that experience is, it's become a lot more important. So you want that, and you want to be outside, you want to get out, you want to get out of the house. And so I think that there'll be a lot going on. I mean, you hear about these outdoor kitchens and outdoor spaces that to me are in a lot of ways just kind of a trophy space, and they may or may not actually be used a lot by the family, or going to be used a lot. And so, you know, I think those kind of spaces will get a lot of attention. And I think, you know, definitely if you're working from home, teaching school, doing all those things, you know, that little corner of the house that you might not have paid any attention to, like when you ran in and, you know, put your luggage down, unloaded it, reloaded it, and went on to the next trip, are suddenly going to be, you know, a little more important.
Right.
And so I think, you know, home office, but not old, you know, 90s yucky, you know, more something that's more useful, not built in, maybe flexible lighting. You know, I mean, let me put a plug in for some lighting. You're going to want some, you know, you're going to want a decent reading lamp, or, you know, some better lighting in the bathroom, because now that's your spa, barbershop, hair salon experience. So, you know, that kind of thing. I think it's just all going to be really interesting to see now that we're, you know, spending a little more time at home, how it all comes about.
All right, well, Satya, yeah, same to you. You know, what areas in our industry really stand to benefit and gain some ground from all of this?
Yeah. And I think similar to what Jana and Cecil said, I mean, staycation is a word that has been used in the past. I mean, people can't do those holidays that they planned for the concert, or summer trips, and people are living in their home. So, you know, we are to be, and some data already showing that through e-commerce now, as things open up, we'll see more. We feel like people are going to be recognizing areas in their home they never noticed before. You know, I remember in my early days in finance, I was trying to look for a place in New York City with 2 other, you know, friends. And we kept in all these small closet apartment. We kept saying, "Oh, we're only going to sleep here." I feel bad for those guys now that if they have to. So I think, you know, the whole use of home has changed. I feel like people will be spending, you know, a lot of money will go into these homes to make this home much more enjoyable, livable, for sure. So I think we're definitely gonna benefit from that for sure.
Right. Well, we did get a question from the audience, so I'm gonna serve that up right now, as well as we're right up against the as well with this. So Satya, I'll start with you. You know, someone wanted to know, do you think in terms of e-commerce, we're going to start seeing good, better, best merchandising verticals, you know, in the online shopping? You know, your thoughts on that, and then, you know, any final thoughts that you might have.
I mean, it's too early to, I mean, obviously e-commerce, I mean, I saw this, you know, it's kind of like a meme on Facebook. What brought your business digital? CEO, CTO, or COVID-19? So obviously, you know, we are all, you know, we all forced to change, and none of us want to change. So I feel like e-commerce definitely is getting more market share from mass merchant. Like imagine when I got my first job, I took a shuttle from Port Authority, New York, to go to Newark, New Jersey to buy my stuff. Now that customer is not going to IKEA or Target going e-commerce. But with that said, better best will still be done, more of a curated way, right? Like when you want, instead of dining in, if you want, better, you may order takeout from a finer restaurant than go to Burger King. So I feel like our designers and our retailers will evolve into making some of these things more functional and more easier. But e-commerce will tend to be promotional entry goods because it's hard to buy $5,000 rug without touching and feeling. That person may end up buying a rug for $500. So I think you will see a little bit of higher price point in e-commerce for sure. But it's, I don't think it's going to be a good, better, best. Right. What may change, Thomas, will be like, omni-channel, right? So, we have some customers who are, mid to high-end retailer. They may embrace, so this could be more like they may have seen the product in person. Now they're transacting online, or they are involved in a, dialogue with their designer, and they're using this as more about a reference tool. But that's not the origin and end of the transaction. It may be part of the transaction.
Right. All right. Well, Cecil, your thoughts on that, or any other final thoughts you might have?
Well, I think that it'll be interesting to see how the kind of luxury home space grows in the e-commerce piece of it, because it has not been focused on that. And from, I think a lot of people who work in that space have not wanted it to go there. And so, I think that there's there's some tension. It's like, oh, well, that's all just promotional or whatever. And I think that is the biggest part of it and will continue to be. But I think there's opportunity for that to grow. And I'm curious to see, how it comes out. Because I do think there will be some folks who will be willing to encounter something at a higher level without going to the place and seeing it.
And Jayanna, final thoughts are yours.
I mean, they both definitely nailed it for sure. I mean, as far as the luxury space is concerned, I think that, now they're the most used to traveling all the time, right? So now that they're stuck in their house, they're definitely thinking about replacing that $50,000 couch or $20,000 couch. And that's a lot more, they're going to take the risk, I think, a little bit more frequently than someone else. So I definitely think that it's going to be coming, but it's not happening as fast as some of the other divisions.
All right. Well, I think that will about do it for this particular discussion. I'd like to thank all of you for joining me. It's been a great talk. It's been nice to catch up too. And for everybody in the audience, thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.